In 2023, the French government finally allowed a handful of centenarian African veterans to return to their home countries without losing their military pensions. It took nearly a century for the state to grant these men basic financial justice. These men were the last of the tirailleurs Senegalais. Created in 1857, this military corps was drawn from across all of French sub-Saharan Africa. The recruits and forced conscripts came from modern-day Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and beyond, not just Senegal. France marketed them to its public as docile, eternally smiling subjects, eager to serve the empire. Their true history reveals a calculated system of three distinct betrayals: strategic, symbolic, and financial. Before the First World War, French military doctrine faced a numbers problem. The proposed solution was the force noire, a deliberate strategy to use African populations to offset France's lack of manpower. During the war, tirailleurs were deployed as shock troops. In brutal offensives like the Chemin des Dames, they suffered catastrophic casualties. French recruiters offered an explicit transaction known as the blood tax. The deal was straightforward: fight for the Republic and receive full citizenship and equality. Thousands of young men volunteered based on these promises from political figures like Blaise Diagne. Once the war was won, the promise of equality evaporated. Surviving veterans were shoved back under the oppressive, unequal laws of the colonial Code de l'Indigénat. 2 decades later, the cycle repeated. During the Battle of France in 1940, the tirailleurs fought fiercely against the German invasion. When captured by the Nazis, they were subjected to targeted, racially motivated massacres. By August 1944, the tirailleurs played a critical role in liberating southern France, helping secure cities like Toulon and the broader region of Provence. Right before the final victory marches, military initiated an order known as le blanchiment, or the whitewashing. The Allies wanted the world to see a purely white army liberating Paris. Black soldiers were stripped of their uniforms and replaced by white metropolitan troops. The state used their bodies to win the war, and then actively erased their existence from the historical triumph to protect a white imperial narrative. In December 1944, hundreds of repatriated African prisoners of war were held at the Thiaré camp in Senegal. They were unarmed, and they were simply demanding their legally owed back pay. The French military responded by ordering its troops to open fire on their own veterans. Dozens, likely hundreds, were killed, and the massacre was covered up. France then continued to use its remaining tirailleurs to brutally repress independence movements in other colonies, like Madagascar and Indochina. This chart compares military pensions over several decades following 1960, the year many African nations gained independence. The white French veterans' pension steadily rises with inflation, while the African tirailleurs' pension is crystallized, permanently frozen flat at the bottom of the axis. The state committed a literal theft of money from the men who had already paid the ultimate price to defend its treasury. The 2023 unfreezing of pensions and recent naturalizations were not acts of French benevolence. These partial victories only happened because of decades of relentless legal and political fighting by the veterans and their families. The surviving image of the tirailleur destroys the myth of a civilizing and benevolent colonial era. Remembering the tirailleurs requires confronting the uncomfortable truth of empire, a system designed to extract everything, even blood, while violently refusing to pay its debts.